It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex. Good afternoon, beautiful and peeps, both foreign and domestic, and welcome to the latest episode of The Nonprofits, the show, the flagship show of the atheist community of Austin, wherein we discuss news and social issues from a skeptical, humanist perspective. My name is Johnny P. Angel, and I am joined today by three magnificent people on my far left. On your far left is Richard. How you doing, Richard?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah.
What you been up to? What you been doing?
I've just usual stuff. Podcasts. Might have a little bit of a job interview for a manager's position coming up in a few hours. It's really early. It's like 2:15 in the morning here at the time of recording. So,
are you going to go to sleep and then go to the job interview? Or are you just going to ride it out?
I'll probably have an hour just to get my head fresh.
Well, folks, let's send him some thoughts and prayers and good vibes, and hopefully we will carry you to success on our discussion. You'll have beautiful dreams, and you'll walk in there super refreshed and confident. I'm sure that you'll do well. And to your left, I don't even know what we say. Teo, what you up to? What's happening? How are you? Good to have you back. What are you up to?
Hi, Johnny. Yeah, I'm still excited, still celebrating the first year of my program. So happy about that. I am starting to have this kind of copy of the atheist experience when I'm talking with believers in Spanish. So I'm extremely happy about that. And I have two guys who used to be theists, who now they have their own segment and all of that, and they are talking about why they are atheists. So I have so many things. I am trying so many new stuff, new social networks and all of that. So I've been pretty busy, and I'm extremely excited about that.
That sounds like you are, and it sounds exciting. You sound very energized, and I know you've been working hard. And to your right, I'm just going to commit to your right, as the viewer sees it, is Scott Dickie. Scott, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Who are you? What are you doing?
Who are you?
Who are you?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I've been a fan of the show for a long time, way back in the old school days, way back. But yeah, why am I here? Well, first of all, I'm a math teacher. I've been a math teacher for, I don't know, 20 plus years, maybe coming up on 25. But I also do a little podcast on the side with a friend of mine who is a minister, actually now a former minister, and he is now a Christian apologist. And so he and I, we met on Facebook, as a matter of fact, and we're chatting, and we became good friends. And even though we've never met in real life, and so we decided one day we wanted to. He's kind of right-leaning politically. I'm kind of left-leaning politically. He's a Christian. I'm an atheist, and so we thought it would be a good mix. And so we have a podcast by the name of the God or Not podcast, and our motto is that we follow Hume's phrase of truth springs from argument amongst friends, and so that's kind of where we're coming from. We're friends first, and we're interlocutors second. And so that's pretty much me, and then my path led right here to the nonprofits.
Ooh, all roads lead to the nonprofits. That sounds really interesting. I'm going to check out your podcast because
cool.
I am really trying to have those conversations with my friends, and every time I feel like I'm walking on eggshells with the friends who I disagree with but who I respect otherwise. And
it's definitely a challenge. It's definitely a challenge. And
Yeah.
so we talk about a lot of that on the podcast too, about our method, our difficulties and our challenges.
I like that. Well, I'm going to check that out. Well, thanks again for being on the show.
Sure.
As I alluded to earlier, this show is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 non-profit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and the promotion of positive atheism. As with all of our shows, we have our links down in the description. All right. So we'll do our research, just a little behind the scenes, like we mentioned it before. We'll do our research. We'll pick out articles. We'll plunk them into a document, and then we'll all read the document. And then our curiosity takes over, and we go off in our different directions. And we'll find other sources for the same material. We'll find contradictory stuff. We'll find stuff that buttresses and supports those positions. And we challenge ourselves. And so some of that stuff's going to be down in there too, because we want our viewers to go ahead and do their own investigation. Disagree with us. And if you do, make sure you let us know. But go ahead, if you want to, pause the video. You don't have to watch us live. A lot of us are out there right now watching us live in our live chat and having a good time, I know. But you can go ahead and pause us and go read those articles and come back if something interests you and see what our take is on it. So we've got ourselves 4 segments today. And we've got, let me see, we got for ourselves, can exposure to celebrities reduce racial prejudice? A little case study there. We're also going to be talking about top Republicans rubbing shoulders with extremists in a secretive right-wing group. There's been a recent leak. It's been all over the news. Number 3, Thor is beating the Lutheran Church in a battle for believers in the land of fire and ice. He's hammering them, maybe it's more accurate. And then finally, we've got an example of a priest stealing some cash, using it to meet dudes. And we're going to talk about that too. But for our first article, let's just go ahead and start this one off. I believe, Richard, you're going to be taking the lead on this. Tell us what is this article? What are we looking at? Who wrote it? Where'd it come from?
Right, it's a 2019 paper submitted to Stanford's Immigration Policy Lab, and it's asked again the question: can exposure to celebrities from a stigmatized group reduce prejudice towards that group writ large? So this is a question the paper is asking. It's largely based on the parasocial contact hypothesis, which was proposed by Edward Schapper, Peter B. Gregg, and Dean E. Hughes in a 2005 paper, which was a kind of update to Allport's 1954 contact hypothesis. So in the abstract, it states, we find that hate crime in Merseyside, which is the home of Liverpool Football Club, dropped by 16% compared to a synthetic control. And Liverpool Football Club fans halved their rates of posting anti-Muslim tweets relative to fans of other top 5 clubs. The survey experiment suggests that the salience of Salah's Muslim identity enabled positive feelings towards Salah to generalize to Muslims more broadly, providing real-world behavioral measures of prejudice reduction. So it's a really interesting paper. It's a welcome addition to people like me who've suspected for a long time that exposure to people of different groups, especially marginalized religious groups, it's a positive thing. It's a good thing.
Right. Yeah. One of my favorite things was, I'm not a soccer fan or a football fan for that matter, or an American football fan for that matter. I'm watching Ted Lasso right now. So that's about as close as I think I'm going to get to it. But what I'm really liking is this fella, what was his name? I'm trying to find his name.
Salah, the football player.
Thank you, Salah. Yeah. The fans in Liverpool, they're making these chants. And I know these chants are a popular feature of the sport. If he scores another few, then I'll be Muslim too. If he's good enough for you, he's good enough for me. Sitting in a mosque, that's where I want to be. And then here's another one. Mohammed Salah, a gift from Allah. He's always scoring. It's almost boring. So please don't take Muhammad away. I think that's really funny. But
I'm surprised you found football chants that are clean enough to actually broadcast.
it's in the paper. I'm sure there's dirty ones. Teo, Scott, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, first thing that jumped out at me as the math nerd in residence, right? You mentioned that they had that synthetic control, and I thought that was really really interesting. Whenever I get something like a report or a study like that, I like to go straight to the methodology, right? I want to look at how did you get this information before I take the information in. I thought that so synthetic control is when they're not going to be comparing to how things are now to how they used to be. What they do is they either mathematically model or maybe they'll have data from other areas, but they want to compare to what are the effects of this to how are things now compared to how they would have been otherwise. And so I just thought that was interesting, and so I appreciate you indulging me in a little math sidetrack there.
No, that's the interesting stuff. So how did they do that? Did you pick up how they did that modeling? Did it make sense to you? Because I'm just a simple. Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't dive too deep into that. I think I remember seeing that they took some similar information from surrounding regions, and so that way it would encapture things like current events and so forth. And so I think that's a common way of approaching that is to look for similar scenarios and see how they turn out and so forth.
Okay, I hope you don't mind if I take this a little bit.
Please.
I think for me, this was very interesting. And there are two interesting concepts that I would like to discuss with you. One of them is parasocial interaction. I had no idea what it was until some time ago. Actually, there's a personal anecdote there, but thanks to Eric Murphy, I learned about parasocial interaction for some conversations I had with him. And it's pretty interesting. If you don't know, people watching, what that is when you get closer to a celebrity and you feel that they are your friends, despite them not having idea who you are. You don't exist in their life, but for you, they are your best friends. My grandma had a famous guy died who she would always watch on TV, and she was very, very sad, almost as if her best friend had died because of this type of relations that we create. So obviously this, sorry, before going there, last time I was here, we were talking about two important things related to this. One was Nicki Minaj giving awful anti-vaxxers advice. And I said that it was very dangerous because people tend to trust in celebrities. And this is the reason why we trust in celebrities, because of what happened, because of this parasocial interaction. So, of course, when you find a famous person who is doing something that you like, you're going to become closer to that person. And the second thing that I want to talk about is the monkey sphere. Do you know what the monkey sphere is?
Only from your notes. Or was it crack.com? Where did it come from?
Oh, that was one of the articles, but I actually linked the original article in there as well. The monkey sphere is this idea from scientists who realized that monkeys create their own groups, and they realized that with close members to their group, they are very nice, and with other members who do not belong to their group, they are terrible people, just like humans. And they started analyzing their brains, and they kept analyzing gregarious animals, and until they arrived to humans. It turned out that humans can care for 150 people in their brains. That's why the first generation of Pokemon is the best one, by the way, because we tend to appreciate 150 people around us. And people who are far away from the monkey sphere, that means our close group, we don't even see them as people. A good example that is, for example, if you hear that in China there was an accident and 100 children died, it's very sad. You become sad. But if your father, mother, or your son or daughter dies, the pain is huge. And those 100 children who just died become nothing compared to this. And my favorite example that I love to use is Hitler. Hitler was a vegan. He was nice to animals. He was a good friend. He was a good father. He was a good Christian. And if you tell that to people, Christians, parents alike, vegans, and people who love animals, all of them get offended. Because for us, Hitler is the worst monster ever. and we
Yeah.
try to keep him as far from our monkey sphere as possible.
You
So of
said
course,
before we go any further, you said something that kind of frightened me. You said Hitler was a good father. Are you telling me that Hitler had children?
yeah, didn't you hear about the descendants of Hitler who decided to not to reproduce to end his
No.
his genes?
I didn't.
Really?
I did not know that Hitler had children.
Yeah.
See, you can learn something here on the nonprofits.
Yeah, it's awesome.
My goodness.
So he was a good family guy. That's the point.
Well,
Sorry, really quickly.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I
Go
promise
ahead.
I will let you go.
Not at all.
Yeah,
No, I had a
yeah,
question
it's
for you.
because
That's all.
we tend to forget that Hitler was a human. And no, guys, he was a human. He was another person. So don't believe that he was an extremely evil monster. So what is the point? When you take somebody who is out of your monkey sphere, for example, this Muslim guy, we usually, and I'm going to say myself as well, I see Muslims as people who live on the other side of the world. They have a foreign religion, they have a foreign language. But if I was a fan of football, sorry, Richard, I don't care about football. But if I was, and I saw this guy who is a Muslim who plays for a team that I like, you are English, Richard. What do you mean you don't like football? So if I did that, sorry, obviously I could. This person gets closer to my monkey sphere, and I start learning about these people. Can I go with one last anecdote?
Of course you can. Please.
Thank you, Johnny. You are a real angel. So another personal experience of my own, that how I realized that I get affected by this. I have to admit, I was one of those people who, English is not my first language. So when the thing of pronouns started, I was all like, oh yeah, why do I have to learn these so many pronouns for people who don't even care about me and those weird strangers on the internet? And suddenly I was watching Villa Bianca on YouTube, and for some reason I really like listening to them. And then I realized, oh wait, this person is talking about these pronoun things that I don't care about. Let's pay attention. Let's see what they are saying about. Yeah, I used to use the wrong pronoun back then. And then I realized, hey, this is not about me. I'm not using these pronouns because it's about me and how I use the language. It's about this person who I care for and who I don't want to hurt. And now I understand why they use those pronouns. So we are all affected by this idea of getting people closer to our monkey sphere, and the mixing that with parasocial interaction. When a celebrity, we feel them close to us and we feel them as our friends, of course we start getting closer to the group of people that they represent. And that's why last time I was here, we were talking about Paul Roll and this bug. Representation is so important, people. We need representation to get closer to people who we don't even think about as quotation mark people. So that was my rant.
Teo, you said so
Johnny?
many things, and I think I just forgot half of what you said because I was along for the ride. I
Don't
wanted
worry,
to
I forgot
respond
it
to
too.
something earlier, but okay, hang on. Where was
It was about Hitler, probably.
No, it wasn't Hitler. Well, here's my first question, and this goes out to everyone. I do believe that I personally believe that the farther someone is, whether that's an actual person or it's a group or it's a concept of a person, right? A child living on the plains of Mongolia, let's just say that's an individual, but it's a hypothetical person. The farther that person gets from our everyday experience, the more difficult it is to, in a strong way, empathize with their plight, whatever it might be, to share in the highs and lows of life. But I wonder, what does social media, what does other forms of media do for that? Is the monkey sphere the opposite of parasocial relationship? Because quite honestly, there's a lot of people that I don't ever encounter, but I see them a lot. They've come into my world through the internet. Has the advent of the internet changed the monkey sphere? Thoughts?
Ooh, that's a good
Definitely.
question.
I think
yeah.
so.
Yeah, well,
I
for
think
sure.
especially with things like transphobia and things, I think the internet's played a massive part in educating people.
Well, not only educating, but I think that layer of that layer of anonymity, you're kind of out in cyberspace, and you can't help but making connections with other. I mean, we just naturally make connections with other people, and so if you're quote unquote surrounded by virtual people to interact with, I mean, you're going to make connections, and since it's not a two-way conversation at that moment, it's very much asynchronous, and so it's easy to kind of let your thoughts and your emotions, as far as other people, to kind of let them kind of take over, and I wonder, Teo, you kind of mentioned that that parasocial contact, that parasocial effect, and it seems like that's, I think if we look at this headline, or we read the intro to this story, I don't think it surprises anyone. I don't think it surprises anyone that knowing, that liking a football player that's a Muslim will lessen negative feelings. I mean, it seems like as human beings, we naturally want to generalize. We naturally want to, we take these cognitive shortcuts. We've all heard of the halo effect, right? Or if you haven't, the halo effect basically is when you like one thing about a person, it's very easy for you to, or if somebody's really good at something, you consider them to be good at something, it's very easy um, to kind of smear that across their whole person. Like, for example, I mentioned I was a teacher, and I started out teaching high school. I teach at the college level now, but when I was teaching high school, like at the end of the year, we might have a day where we play games or something. And I remember one particular time when I was playing Risk with some students, and this was these were very bright students, and so I didn't consider myself to be dominating the game or anything like that. But I found that it was very easy for me to, how should I say this, manipulate the diplomacy, okay, to encourage players to maybe go a particular way. And it was just fascinating to watch, even while I was kind of having my own little meta game there. And and it had never occurred to me that they would be so vulnerable to me. I've actually witnessed the halo effect with ACA hosts as well. If you see on and especially as a new host becomes more and more and more famous, I suppose, more of a celebrity. It's interesting watching how people's reactions will change over time. As you do that, I mean, not only the halo effect, but we also have the coattails effect, or the down ballot effect, right? If you like the candidate at the top of the ballot, you'll vote for, and this might be applicable directly to the situation we're talking about here, right? So we have this top of the ticket Muslim, and then we have all these down ballot Muslims that are all of a sudden more attractive to us because of Salah at the top there.
Yeah, and I'll say this. Talking about, you mentioned ACA hosts. When people become familiar with someone, they develop the parasocial relationship, right? They think they feel that it's a two-way street. It's a psychological thing. It's not any kind of derangement or anything like that. We all have it. I like watching certain late night talk show hosts, and I enjoy them, and I have a feeling that they might be fun to be around, and like they understand me, but it's not true. But also, I think that more familiar people get with some of these, the faces that you see on the screen, the more forgiving you are of something they might say. Right? There's an argument that takes place on one of the call-in shows. Right? Go into the chat, watch the live chat. Even when the host isn't making the best points ever, even when the caller has a good point to make, there's a it's a very forgiving atmosphere. Occasionally you'll get the, dare I say, the edgelord people who like to say the edgy, contradictory things. But for the most part, it's a lot of agreement is going on there. Even if the point that is being made is not the strongest point, even if the caller has a better case or has a point that's made, there's a lot of forgiveness going on there.
Yeah,
You made-
I've been an ACA volunteer in the YouTube chat for about a year now, just coming up to a year. And yeah, I agree with everything you say, Johnny. The kind of the attraction towards the hosts and the agreement with the hosts like you say, even if the caller has a good point, they tend to. It's like a magnet effect.
I shall summon the monkey's fear again. It's pretty interesting when you check, for example, a video that is a debate between a believer and a ACA host, for example. You can go to the comments. It doesn't matter who uploaded it. You're always going to find the guys who support the atheist and the guy who support the believer, and both of them are saying that their side won. And well, you check the conversation, and in the end, it wasn't that big, that awesome of a conversation. That the conversation wasn't that awesome. So, but you're going to see people who feel closer to the either to the guest or to the believer who called, and they're going to be supporting them and having this mentality of us versus them. That well, I think that we should start destroying that. And something pretty interesting with these calls that I've been doing now, I have realized I also have that idea of us versus them, and then when we start talking about, we agree in way too many things.
Yeah, we need to move on, but I want to say a few things about that. Look, the whole point of this network and this show and other shows is not for people to call in and agree, right? Community, yes. Agreement, no. Don't just listen and nod your head, all right? That doesn't mean question every single thing, like whether the earth is flat. I mean, go ahead and do it, but I mean, or just go away. Or do vaccines work? Okay, go into your laboratory, folks, and complete your research, or do what you do every other aspect of life. Trust that the experts have delivered a product that actually works. I don't know, but I want to take it back to the article. As I was reading, I singled out a paragraph here that the Salah effect is not likely unique to Salah. Celebrities with role model like qualities have been long thought to shape social attitudes. Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 1947. That was an African American player who played in the what was then all white baseball league. And as a result of him being in there and being on TV and winning and doing a great job, attitudes did soften toward African Americans. Now, not amongst everybody, not a night and day difference, but there was a difference. And then, going down here, we talked about they did a hate crime analysis. Apparently, hate crime was down, tweets were down. And again, there's a lot to be said for is this actually what happened, or are these just models that they're running to show? The article itself, and we'll have the link in the description, shows that there was possibly a decrease in some of this hateful attitude towards Muslims. And I wonder if that's what we need for non-believers. I thought about Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. First, when I saw this, I thought, in the 90s, there was, or 2000s, I've lost track at this point. There was a show called Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. It was tacky, but there was some dudes, I think it was 5 dudes, and they would go do a makeover over some frumpy, purportedly straight dude. And they showed their personality. They showed that they were supporting and loving and yada, 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 and stylish. And at the end of it, the guy looked better and had more confidence. I mean, it's reality TV, right? They rebooted the show recently, and I watched a couple episodes. It's very saccharine, cotton candy TV, and it seemed kind of a throwback to an earlier time. And yet, I can't help but feel that when folks were exposed to the Fab Five or whatever they were called, that they realized, oh, these are just 5 guys. Some of them they're being funny. I know the Cosby Show uh, got into a lot of homes in the 80s and saw an African American family, an idealized African American family being a regular family. I'm sure that did something. It seems like it had to have done something to show the folks at home that this to white families or non-black families, that these are just regular folks living a regular life and having hijinks happen just like I do. And so I wonder if that wouldn't be something that atheists can do, for those who can come out to say, look, I don't believe in Jesus or Muhammad or anything like that, but do you need a ride to the airport? Or I got a lawnmower. Do you want to borrow the lawnmower? Or something like that, just to show that it's the same concerns, the same attitudes towards community, that the other people have, and then through exposure, they're like, oh, well, okay. It's like almost like exposure therapy. Like, oh, he or she's just a regular person, just like I am. He just doesn't believe that.
I wonder if part of that is with the exposure, it makes it hard for you to maintain those false predispositions or preconceptions, right? So that's what we're doing when if somebody asks, why do you say that you're an atheist? Well, I think it's important that people know that, so that way they can have some good associations, not just the negative associations that they may have been told.
Yep. Mr. Johnny.
Are you on mute there, Johnny?
We knew it was going to happen,
I
Johnny.
promised you I would do it. I promised
It's
you.
Good that you got it out of the way early. Get it out of the way early.
Now you're free to do that.
You're a man of your word. That's good.
Well, this was an interesting topic. We left a lot on the table. But we got to move on right now. But before we move on to our second segment, I just want to say that because of all of you wonderful viewers out there sharing the good news of the nonprofits, we have, as of the time of this recording, 9.4 thousand subscribers. Thank you to our veteran subscribers and to our new subscribers. This is great. Once we hit 10,000, you've heard we're going to do fundraisers, and that's true. But don't you go thinking that we're going to stop at 10,000 subscribers. I'm looking at PewDiePie numbers, okay? I know that's unrealistic. I know that that's probably unhealthy. But I'm looking at millions and millions of subscribers. I want people to be blocking their ears because they can't hear our voices anymore. They're going mad. But needless to say, how are we going to get there? How are we going to get into every bedroom? Much like Kim Jong-un has his picture in every single room, and you have to, give him a little salute when you go to the bathroom. How are we going to get there? Well, share this with your friends, anyone who you might think might enjoy this, or someone who you think might hate it, but you got a good relationship with. We like to hear the feedback. I want to get emails from Uncle Tony, who believes that the vaccine makes you magnetic and that he doesn't like our tone and that we need to be a little bit more open-minded. I want to hear that stuff, and that's only going to happen when we get outside of our comfort zone. So go ahead and share that with us. Of course, share them with us. Like, subscribe if you haven't already, and that'll tell you when you ring that bell. That'll tell you when we got a new episode. Again, every episode is going to be airing at 3 p.m. in between Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience. But, while I'm here, speaking of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience and secular sexuality and Truth Wanted, you should know by now, and shame on you if you don't, that the ACA, the Atheist Community of Austin, has another YouTube channel. Yes, it does. You knew it did. Don't make me say these words that I'm about to say. And that is a one-stop shop, and I hate myself for saying it. The Atheist Experience Network is a one-stop shop for all of our ACA shows in podcast form. You need not shop elsewhere. You might stop only one place to get the rest of these programs, but it's in podcasts, so you can watch. And how will you do that? Well, go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts to listen. Now, you won't see us, but you can listen to us right there, as well as the hosts of The Atheist Experience, Secular Sexuality, Truth Wanted, and am I missing one? Maybe not. Talk Heathen. That's it. All right. Enough said. We're going to move on to segment 2. What we got here is a recent expose. Top Republicans have been rubbing shoulders with extremists in a secretive right-wing group, according to this leak. I have been seeing this all over the internet. Has anyone else been seeing this in their news feed recently?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Good,
Yeah.
Good. Well, what is the group? It looks like the group is the CNP. And what they are all about, let me actually click on that link. 1 second. I lost the link. Let me click on it. This secretive group kind of gave me the creeps. The Council for National Policy. That sounds very benign, doesn't it? I mean, we need a national policy, do we not? And I think a council ought to be involved in that. We don't want one person cooking up national policy. Well, the group was founded in 1981 by activists influential in, you guessed it, the Christian right. Tim LaHaye, Howard Phillips, Paul Weyrich, who had also been involved in founding and leading the Moral Majority. I mean, I like morality, and I mean, honestly, the majority should really be involved in it. I have no fault on its surface with a group called the Moral Majority. Anyhow, but what they were trying to do is they were trying to maximize their influence on what at the time was the new Ronald Reagan administration. Later, it became George W. Bush and Mitt Romney, and of course, the most recent ex-president, Donald Trump. The membership is comprised of leaders in what so-called family values groups, national defense groups, decency movements, woven with members of the Dead Billionaires Club, like Adolf Coors Foundation, the Koch brothers, Richard DeVos, Richard Skyfay, and other billionaires and foundations who have invested in these kind of causes. There's a list of in this, and it's a gross list, but it's essentially a who's who of who's in the regressive right, those who would take us back to when America was, great. We got all kinds of folks. Email addresses and phone numbers for members that the Southern Poverty Law Center have listed as hate groups, anti-Muslim groups, the Center for Security Policy, Act for America. Again, these names are awesome, right? I like security. It's got to be centered somewhere. And Act for America, well, I'm a patriot. We got anti-LGBT groups. Well, who better to discuss LGBT issues than the Alliance Defending Freedom? I mean, it's not going to defend itself. Pacific Justice Institute. It's not just the Atlantic anymore. The Pacific also needs justice, and it should be researched. The Family Research Council, speaking of which, they're finding new types of families all the time, and the Family Research Council is trying to stamp out those new kinds of families, aren't they? The Liberty Council, the American Family Association, not to be confused with American Family Insurance. We got anti-immigrant groups, and we got names here. But Legal Immigrants for America. Well, that's good. I'm in favor of the law, and I'm sure all of you are as well. Anti-abortion groups, and of course, Trump administration conspiracy-minded characters in Trump's orbit. We've got Jerome Corsi, who has written conspiracy-minded books about John Kerry, Barack Obama, and the September 11th attacks. He's listed as a member of the CNP's Board of Governors. Charlie Kirk, founder and president of Turning Point USA, a conservative youth organization. And I could keep going because there's more here, but we got folks in media. We got folks in various funds. Some folks have said that this group is essentially the dark money ATM of the conservative movement. And I don't think anyone here is particularly surprised that there are these connections, that this isn't just a grassroots movement by Joe the plumber and, soccer moms fighting for their rights, their way of life. No. It's those who have money trying to maintain some hegemony. But I've talked a lot. I want to hear one of you. What were your reactions to this article?
I was very surprised that with you saying that, there are a lot of people in there. It's because it's a 220-page document. This isn't just like a shopping list which has been released. This is big, and it's got all the names and the phone numbers, and the article that we read on it. The primary article we read, it called it a shadowy. an intensely secretive group. So I'm sure these people aren't immensely happy with having all their details released to everybody.
Of course, why not?
Right. The first rule of the far right club is do not reveal your affiliation or name the group.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, I had to say, the first time that when I read this, my first reaction was, really? This political party who chose an extremely misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic guy as their representative to become the president has relations with groups related to xenophobia, misogynia, homophobia, and hatred towards immigrants? I was totally shocked, for real. I couldn't imagine that.
Yeah.
And sorry, guys, this is everything that is wrong with that bad, nasty part of the USA that is kind of poisoning the country nowadays. As you mentioned, Johnny, they have anti-Muslim groups, anti-LGBT or hate groups that hate those people, anti-immigrant hate groups. Yeah, those immigrants, como se atreven. Extremists that oppose abortions, who spread misinformation, anti-vaxxers, the NRI, those guys who sell guns so your children can be shot at school. Those I feel that is kind of the worst of the worst. Those rich people that profit from killing or from allowing people to murder each other, and who want to literally turn your country, guys, into a Christian Sharia dystopia. Because I want to quote from the article. Who was it? Bill Walton in 2020, before the elections between Trump and Biden, he said, "This is a spiritual battle we're in. This is good versus evil." Like if the guys trying to oppress others to join hate groups, they believe that they are the good guys.
They sure do. Yeah. We've talked about this before on the show, where it's
I'm not
not
surprised.
enough. It's well, not this specifically, but we talked about this following statement, this following position, that it's not enough to be engaged in a struggle for life's meaning and the necessities of life. It's not enough that there are many different people with many different perspectives, and some of them have better information, some of them have less information, some of them are more selfish. No. It's we're in a life and death struggle between the holy angels and the demons from below.
Afterlife and death.
Afterlife, forever and ever, and burning and writhing and screaming, and they're going to make our world over like that. The end game for these folks it's ridiculous. Read some fantasy, read some sci-fi, read some novels. It's not real. It's just not real. We're not in a life or death struggle between heaven and hell. We're just on this earth and we're just disagreeing about things. But this kind of attitude, it's childish to me. One thing that I saw here, sourcewatch.org, I believe it was, listed, or is it? These folks have invested heavily, I quote, in developing a complex web of far-right groups, think tanks, and politicians over the last 40 years to, and this is the part, return the United States to its pre-Franklin Delano Roosevelt 19th century capitalist roots. Now, that might not mean too much to Teo and to Richard, or it might, but that's when America was great, I suspect. People are thinking in the 19th century, the Gilded Age, extreme wealth disparity, labor was disorganized and at the mercy of capitalist interests. Men were men and women knew enough to shut the fuck up. And everyone who wasn't a certain color, whatever color that might be, just lurked wherever they could, had the freedom to lurk. I suspect that that's when America was great again to some people, is during this time. The good old days.
We have the same kind of thing in Britain with the far right racist groups, where one of the objections they like to they want to talk about going back to a golden age of pre-immigration, when it's pointed out that Britain's always had immigration because we're an island surrounded by lots of other countries. They like to set a date on it of exactly the ideal day when their values and they going back to Christian values again, when their Christian values come forward and you know, I think it's 1930 something. They like to point to us something when Britain was a really great nation and there were no immigrants or very little immigration, and that's the ideal time we want to go back to. It's bullshit.
Yeah, it is.
It's like religion trying to take us all back to medieval times and the dark ages when religion was ruling. I feel it's the same for you guys.
Yeah.
You have a longer
Scott-
history on that.
Yeah, Scott, you had some more notes in here. I want.
Yeah. It seems like at least from my perspective, it seems like we're seeing more and more, and maybe it's just we're just becoming more aware of it. But like some of these groups that are kind of linked, where that are kind of that seem to be on the same team, but on this, if you look a little deeper, you wouldn't really be sure what's connecting them. Like we have these violent groups, these anti-immigrant groups, these anti-socialism groups, and then the Christians come in and they say, "Oh, let's meet up with them, and let's all get together and change the world. Change it back to the way it was." We were saying, and so I was kind of curious as to, well, why do they seem to be attracted to each other? Is it really just a bunch of rich old white guys that are manipulating these different groups, or do they actually have common goals? And I stumbled across this really, really interesting research. It's called, here's the title of the article: "The Cognitive and Perceptual Correlates of Ideological Attitudes, a Data-Driven Approach." And what they did is they had this massive study, and with a variety of methods, and I won't bore you with the methodology again, but what they did was they wanted to see if they could some kind of put together some kind of psychological signature, they called it, for different political, nationalistic, religious, or dogmatic beliefs. And so, and they found some really interesting results. They found that one of the things they found was dogmatic individuals may possess reduced inhibition that could be compounded by slower information uptake, leading to impulsive decisions based on imperfectly processed evidence. Now, I'm sure we've all seen things like that. We can all like point to somebody that we think is doing that, but they found that there was a systematic pattern there. Individuals who had those kind of psychological markers or psychological traits. And I don't mean to sound like, all the bad things are on the right side of the spectrum, right? That's not the case. It's just that these are the ones that they found common. So they found that they could predict, whether somebody was going to be more dogmatic when they were in their beliefs. They also found that conservative political ideologies were connected to things like diminished tendency to take social risks, like disagreeing with authority, speaking publicly against in favor or against a controversial topic. And they found that corroborates the research that shows that political conservatives tend to emphasize things like conformity, loyalty, tradition, that kind of thing. But then when they mixed and matched them, they found that, and here I'll just read one of their conclusions here: "The psychological profile of individuals who endorsed extreme pro-group actions, such as ideologically motivated violence against outgroups," okay, so that's what we're looking at here, "was a mix of the political conservatives signature and the dogmatism signature." And so they, by looking at these lower level traits, they called them, their psychological traits, they could make predictions about how their higher level, their ideology would pan out. It was really fascinating, and it does show that there's a tie of some sort between these groups. Of course, it didn't answer my question, whether or not they were doing it out of a common, the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing, or if those commonalities were maybe being manipulated by people of power. But it was just a fascinating read, and so I'm assuming that we'll have the link for that for anybody who cares to dig a little deeper into that. But yeah, it was just really cool. It was I'll just point out, it was from the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society Journal, and so
I like it.
I would like to add that I do believe that religion is the root of most wrong things with our society. So that would be a very strong link among all those people who believe in that specific way, who find some excuses to hate others through religion.
Well,
I may be wrong, though.
What I like about this is that what I like about this is that it's you get the impression that they kind of fancy themselves as kind of a Prior de Zion, Priory of Zion, which was set up by or came to light with a French priest called Saunier, which is what all the kind of Dan Brown novels are based on.
Right.
That whole thing, that you get the impression that they fancy themselves as this kind of secret, dark, unknown society that can like manipulate and influence. But
Who the Illuminati?
To anyone, like, it's not, as Teo said earlier, it's no surprise to anybody that these people are in bed with each other. It's not a secret that this thing's come to life. It's something that you'd probably expect to happen.
You know, we were going to do an article about, we were going to do a segment about the Templars, the Knights Templar. And then we decided not to, right? It would have been perfect. We could have.
We're gonna, right whether you want to or not.
Yeah, I just beat Assassin's Creed Origins, so it's kind of fresh in my mind. Look,
if only the cartoon knew about the Templars.
Let's go. Let's break on this now, okay? Because this is some good stuff. God, there's a lot of material. I'm gonna have to read that. That sounds really fascinating, and I hope that the folks at home will read it and share a little bit more about it. Look. We're going to move on, but before we go on to the next segment, we have a lot of shows here on the Atheist Experience Network. You might not have caught all of them last week. Let's take a break. Let's see what we missed.
This is a great opportunity to give yourself a big old orgasm. Or, better yet, give somebody else one.
Okay.
There's the crew camp. Look at that crew. Look at that crew. And the cats. The cats are important to the crew's success. Cats are important to the crew's success. Ask any YouTuber.
Before we get into this, can we just acknowledge that Kenneth Copeland's like preacher voice is basically Hulk Hogan?
Right? And he's so
it's Hulk Hogan.
Hello, and welcome to Talk Heathen, the show that takes a long, deep sniff from the sweaty armpit of theism and gags mildly before dousing it with the deodorant of logic and reason.
Gosh, it almost makes it look like I say a lot. But,
those make me so happy.
I liked it better when I was dialite. So I just want to say, Shannon Q, we miss you, and vagina.
Well, that's plenty of fun. Let's move on. I'm sure we all had a good laugh.
By the way, as the guest host here, am I obligated to say vagina at any point, or is that?
Did you not get the remit for your contract?
Because if I am expected to say it, I could come up with some kind of weird excuse to try to work it into the conversation. Just to say vagina on the air.
Yeah, I think you're gaming.
You're
gaming for that slot. Yeah, you may have earned it.
No. Well, okay. Yeah,
all right. Segment 3. Thor. Yes, Thor, Norse god of thunder, is hammering the Lutheran Church in Iceland. What does that mean, Mateo? Tell us. Lead us in to segment 3.
Well, this is it. Norse gods are returning, and I'm ready for them, guys. Sorry, I wanted to try that so much. So, I love this article because this is going to be something very interesting about Norse gods, as I said. And yes, despite having the best ones, Loki, Thor, Odin, Freya, this is not my dream match. No, this is rather something about a new religious movement from Iceland. It's called, I couldn't pronounce the name that they gave it over there, but internationally it's called Asatru. And that is Iceland's fastest growing religion or spiritual movement right now. And please, guys, check the link in the description. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Here you will see this woman, Johanna Harthar. I'm not going to be able to pronounce this. Harðaþorir. Yeah, that was perfect. A priestess over there talking about this
just
religion.
like her grandpa would have called her, I'm sure. Go on.
I'm sure, totally. So Don't make me laugh, Mr. Johnny. So, guys, over there you're going to see pictures of her with this bull's horn that contains honey, because this is kind of a Viking ritual over there. And this is a very interesting hidden movement practiced by the early Vikings, who used to go around the shores of Iceland. And it was resurrected after 1,000 years. That's amazing. Some decades ago. And it has reappeared in Iceland and several countries. Even though, well, I'm not a big fan of religions, because this movement is also being embraced by some neo-Nazi groups, so that's like huge. But the people from Iceland, they have no relation with those guys. They have no political ties. They just are doing this, I would say, that for fun, because they are following these ideas of their of the Vikings, of the Viking religion. Actually, if you talk with this woman, the one, read the article in the description, please. She says that Loki hides her keys. Her son was sick, and I think it was Freya who healed him. So I have this conflict. I don't know. Is she trying to pretend like some Satanists do, in the USA, where those are atheists who pretend to worship Satan? Or does she really believe in those gods as kind of spiritual forces? I don't know, but it's pretty hilarious that it is defeating Christianity over there. So, and I'm pretty sure that Christians will go with, no, that's not a real religion. And I'm sure that you and I agree that we believe the same thing about Christianity. So for me, it was very, very interesting.
I think it is interesting. Yeah. Fellas, what do you got? Thoughts?
I agree. Sorry, go ahead, Richard.
I'm torn with it as well. I think it's all very nicey. I think there's a dangerous undercurrent underneath it. And that's the big thing for me with it. I mean, it's all very nice with Freya and her large breasts, as the article mentions. That's very good. I'm not against women with large breasts in any manner whatsoever. But
I love them.
The problem is, it's and you get this nice kind of warm feel about it. The priestess dressed up. It's like a little bit like Lord of the Rings cosplay. She dresses up and she uses this massive horn filled with honey, and to do the ceremonies and things. But there's something that she's writing books for children, introducing children to this religion, and that for me is where the difficulty lay. She like Teo said, she claims to have glimpsed Thor, although she's only seen his hands and his clothing. It's got very thick belts and leather-like straps on his wrists. I don't know whether this is leading into the large breasts or not, but we can always go there later. It's not Thursday though yet. But it's
isn't it by you? Isn't it Thursday where you are?
In here it is.
Oh yes, it is actually.
Slow your roll. Come on.
Right, that's it. Get the large breasts going. I'm ready. No, but I'm a Celtic person, and we've got our fair share of people who claim to have seen and talked to fairies. But it's always that kind of old case that you've got to believe in them to see them, or to there's always a convenient excuse as to why no one can see these things. But
yeah,
even if we give her the benefit of the doubt that it's all an optical illusion, she shouldn't be writing books for kids telling them about these things. It is still indoctrination. When we take the fun out of it, it's still a form of indoctrination. And it's slightly concerning to me that people are jumping on this kind of bandwagon and enjoying this religion, and it's growing so fast.
Scott, what do you got?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm thinking along those same lines. You just got to wonder, is this, I mean, she talks about it. You said she talks about how she has seen Thor and has spoken to Thor, but is this really a religion? Is she really believing in these gods, or is it just kind of are they adopting the whole religion, or are they just adopting the flavor, right? Like you mentioned, Teo, you mentioned Satanists. We have these groups of Satanists, and there's a variety of people that consider themselves to be Satanists. There are people that really believe in the devil, or however they want to picture Satan, and they worship him. But at the other end of the spectrum, we have people, I mean, they're basically atheists that paint themselves with this Satanist brush, either to for a variety of reasons, maybe to what we were talking about before with that parasocial contact, right? Maybe they want to show that just because somebody calls themselves a Satanist doesn't mean that they're an evil, nasty person. Or maybe there's somebody who likes it because they're poking fun at the Christians, or or whatever religion, they're poking fun at religion in general. And if you look at what they're doing with this Asatru, is that how they pronounce Asatru? Or
we really should know how to
do we have an Icelandic translator in the building that we can?
I know we've got some of our mods can probably square it up for us.
Okay, so the listeners actually probably, maybe we did a post production modification there, so I probably sounded like I said it perfectly there, but they have, like, I was looking at their website, and they have these 9 noble virtues that they're supposed to follow, and it doesn't sound a lot like, because my wife and I have seen the TV show Vikings. And we saw the whole thing beginning to end. So I'm an expert on this. So trust me when you hear this.
Yes.
So the Norse religion was very violent. They would have human sacrifices and animal sacrifices. But when you look at these 9 noble virtues, a lot of them would jive, but not all of them. Courage, truth, honor, fidelity, discipline, hospitality, industriousness, self-reliance, and perseverance. I don't see a lot in there about the the blood eagle, if you know what that is. It's a pretty gruesome form of sacrifice. But we compare that to what we see this at least the Levian version of the Satanism. One should strive to act with compassion. The struggle for justice is ongoing and necessary pursuit. The freedoms of others should be respected, and so on. I mean, these are from the tenets of Satanism, and so it's tough to read it,
right?
From the satanic, and so, like Richard was saying, and I just totally lost my train of thought.
You were talking about how they originally how violent they were.
That's right. So now she's producing books, and so they're putting out, and on one hand, we want to say, go for it, do what you got to do. Let's break the stranglehold of these major religions and that kind of thing. But at the other hand, they're kind of doing the same thing. They're kind of promoting this idea of dealing with gods, and so it's tough to say. I feel like torn, like.
As you said,
Viking
religion, I find it very, very interesting for real. I like those gods, and the stories that they have are crazy. I really like them a lot. But as you said, they are very violent. Their idea of Valhalla is a place where you are constantly killing people. You're constantly killing each other all day long. That is heaven for Vikings. And those are the roots of these ideas that she's trying to revive with this awesome god Loki, who is a prankster, but he's also a murderer who kills people in the worst possible ways. So,
what's it going to take for somebody who maybe joined the church because of what he saw, all the friendliness and all the respect and all of the support, but then somebody's going to take it too far, right? Are they going to start doing animal sacrifices or worse?
Or people?
I think the thing is with this is that. It's fine to tell them as stories. That's good and healthy and educational, to understand the culture and its anthropological history. That's normal. That's good and healthy to understand that. But when you start resurrecting the ideas as a truth and saying that you've seen the god and you're interacting with the gods and you're writing children's books about them, we've got enough bad ideas in the world as it is. We don't want to kind of push even more bad ideas onto people.
Yeah, I think what the world probably needs is less religion, not let's not resurrect the old ones. And I know that in the atheist community, in the humanist community, we do have a lot of friends and allies who identify as pagan or theistic or polytheistic heathens, right? I know that some of those folks are listening to the show right now. And I'm not saying, and I don't think any of us here are saying, that if you belong to such a faith tradition, or you identify with this, that you are inexorably on the way toward the blood eagle. I don't even know what the heck that is, but sacrifice and
Oh, you
war
don't want to know.
and moida and all that stuff. That's not for me. The concern is, I don't think that there was a golden age of religion that was closer to truth. What I think it was is human beings trying to figure out a complicated world, listening to half-baked ideas, not developing a scientific method, and trying to use a bunch of metaphors to explain the world in a way that makes their lives and the lives of their community important, cosmically important, so that the good things and the bad things are all part of a plan. To me, that's just where my head is at. As a metaphor, I don't have all that much of a problem with these traditions, the metaphorical substrates or whatever, of society is built upon shared myths that we tell each other. And with these folks in Iceland, right, Christianity took over 1,000 years ago, and then just switched over to Christianity in large part. So for these folks, there's probably some heritage going on. Lutheranism, religion, Christianity doesn't speak to them like it used to because it doesn't hold up. It's not and their religion is not a majority religion. It does not exercise political authority. It does not dictate in the secular realm terms of acceptable behavior. What happens if this religious group starts becoming the dominant? And it sounds like a slippery slope, but they're all peaceniks. They're all same-sex marriage friends. They're non-violent folks. I'm cool with that. But at their heart, they are a tradition based upon not skepticism, not logic, not reason, not science, but upon fancy.
I'm
And
still worried.
go ahead.
No, was going to say I'm still worried about neo-Nazis adopting this religion. That worries me a lot.
But Nazis adopted some of the principles of evolution as well, didn't they? Right? I mean, Nazis are going to take whatever you have that's worth something and twist it and make it shit. Right? I'm not worried about the Nazis. I'm worried about, Grandma Sparkle or whatever, who thinks that she can talk to, I don't know, gnomes or whatever, and she will forego some treatment, or I don't know what. I'm not sure. I'm kind of with you that it's cute. It's a tie to nature. I like that part of it. I like the inclusion, the harmony with the things and all that. But when you let into your home magical thinking, I tend to think that it dilutes your ability to determine fact from fiction, right? Because now it's like, oh, well, now they can just get magicked. Something can get magicked. So why not this other thing gets magicked? And now we're just rewinding the clock on magical thinking to the year 1000. What good is that? But I also, well, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say that something interesting actually in the article stands out as well. That it's I mean, we've talked largely about how it's taking over Lutheranism, but it also says in the article that in Iceland, Islam is a growing religion and Catholicism is a growing religion. So it's not just this one religion. It seems that they're kind of trying to push the oppression that Lutheranism has given them to one side by adopting anything that's kind of not that.
Yeah.
So that might suggest that it's more of a nudge against the establishment than anything else.
Could be.
If it was just play pretend, I would be totally okay with it. But I'm worried when she starts talking about how she's talking with gods. That's right. That is the part that worries me.
Yeah, I see this as probably a reaction against Christianity and an attempt to harken back to the roots of things. And people turn toward other things. One thing about the atheist community is that we don't offer, we try to, But they're offering a community here, a community of fairy believers and Thor pals and others like that. They're creating a little atmosphere where you can really believe this stuff or you cannot believe in stuff. There are no tenets, there are no commandments. It's pretty loosey goosey, but you can bond together. We see that people they're aching for community, and a shared mythology. Well, one thing that I was thinking about, we got the MCU, we've got Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Star Wars, Star Trek, any number of other mythologies that we in this society share, could talk about. I see somebody with a Black Panther shirt or a I don't know, Captain America shield on their shirt. I'm like, well, I know something about that person. I know I can have a conversation probably with that person. There's a bond there. It's not a very deep bond because we don't actually think that stuff's real. Some of these folks actually think this stuff is real, and I don't think there's any better evidence for Thor than there is for Yahweh, Freya versus Ahura Mazda. It's just, is it comforting if you don't focus too much? Is it just fine? Is there a way to limit it? I don't know, and I'm curious to see what happens as this goes forward. But
Yeah.
not for me.
No, we definitely have to see how this advances and what keeps happening. Once again, hilarious that it's defeating this branch of Christianism, but at the same time worrying that people could, take that seriously. And Richard, did you realize that he mentioned Captain Puerto Rico? I told you that topic was going to come up in this conversation.
Yeah, got all the old Captain Puerto Rico that you keep bringing up.
Who's Captain Puerto?
in
who's
every
Captain
conversation
Puerto
we
Rico?
have?
Who's Captain Puerto Rico?
You called it Captain America, but if you look at the design, that's actually Captain Puerto Rico. I will send you the image later.
Okay, all right. I think I know where you're going. I think I can kind of see that. All right, well, Captain Puerto Rico notwithstanding, this is interesting. It's going to be something worth listening, or keeping an eye on. Again, and as far as I want to take this last thought. Okay, this group is growing. I'm not thrilled about it, but I don't want to smash them or anything like that because I'm an atheist, right? I'm not thrilled that magical thinking is growing, but insofar as this group would be oppressed by a religious majority, then I would stand against the oppression. All right. We can still not agree as far as the metaphysics are concerned, but we can still recognize that no one group should be dominating another politically, writing laws to oppress these folks. It sounds like that's not happening, thankfully.
I agree.
But insofar as separation of church and state and the domination of one religion is concerned, as far as, here we have all these laws that are based on Christianity. I'm sure we would have a lot in common with some of these pagan groups to join together to fight this hegemony by certain majority religions. And to that extent, we're allies. So anyhow, I want to move on to our very last segment of the show.
The spicy one.
Yeah, it's some fun. And I think that's where Scott comes in. Scott, we're talking about.
We're talking about a pastor, and this is a story that we found in the Philadelphia Inquirer. Actually, it's an Associated Press story. Apparently, there's a Roman Catholic pastor by the name of Joseph McLoone, who was recently, in fact, very recently, has pled guilty to skimming money from the church that he was working at, and he's been doing this for a while. And there's talk of secret accounts, and there's talk of grinder hookups and beach houses, and so he was originally charged a couple of years ago. And the accusation was that he had stolen up to $100,000, and like I said, he recently pled guilty to stealing $30,000, and so that would be a little bit less. He didn't get any jail time. He stole $30,000. It kind of makes me wonder what would have been taken into account there to make it so. But he didn't get any jail time, but he got 5 years of probation, and and slap on the wrist. And I don't know, it's kind of frustrating when you see this kind of thing happen. We look at well, obviously not we in this in this room, but society as a whole kind of looks to religion, or looks to the church to protect us, to help us, to guide us. And so here we see almost, you might say it's the worst kind of betrayal, right? It's people hold these religious leaders up, and they, in theory, up to a higher standard. But then again, we're cutting them some extra slack too. So we're holding up to the highest standard at the same time as lowering the bar, as far as what the expectations were. And it's, I don't know, it's we kind of laugh at it, but it's kind of not funny at the same time.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
I've got to laugh at the name of the account, because the name of the account he opened was the St. Joseph. Was it the St. Joseph's Activity account?
Activity.
I love that.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Oh right, let's spend all this on Grindr and parties." And
Sure.
Well, he didn't say what kind of activity.
Sure.
Of course.
He was on the Jersey Shore. Does that mean he had like the Jersey Shore look while he was hooking up with these grinder boys?
He calls his abs the emancipation, right?
Oh, yeah. Hey, take the body of Christ.
Right.
This case. Okay. Sorry, Johnny. I was
No. Go
interrupting.
ahead, Teo. I was making stupid jokes.
This worries me because of what Scott said. This reminds me of certain priest. No, he was a pastor who raped his own daughter, and the judge let him go just because he was a man of God, instead of giving him even a worse punishment because
Who is this? Where did this happen? What?
That I think it was last year. I wish I had the name right now. I
Find
don't
it and
really
put it in the
remember.
description. I don't want to.
Okay, I
I'm not
promise
surprised, but yeah.
Yeah, I promise I will.
yeah, I remember one of the previous non-profit shows I was on, when we were talking about girls being sexually abused in college. And one of the reasons one of the guys got let off there, it was brought to light, was because he was a man of God. And that was the defense. And it's ridiculous that is a defense against these things that are happening.
It's not. It ought not be a defense for sure. I think what this is an example of, and this is maybe goes back to our previous article about that little pagan group, is it's magical thinking. Monsignor, what was his name? Joseph McLooney, right? He is God's representative on the earth. He has dedicated himself, or purportedly dedicated himself, to the Christian virtues, the Judeo-Christian values. And whether, not to say that all of those who walk that path walk so in a straight line, no pun intended, but there will be, of course, instances where they fail. But here's the thing. Where are the checks and balances to stop someone like this, to stop the child rape or the adult rape that takes place within religious institutions? When you hold someone up as more than a person, when you ascribe to them supernatural powers and supernatural morality on some level, right? When there are some things that cannot be questioned, what's to stop this kind of stuff from happening? I don't really care about the Roman Catholic parish's money. The money is the least of the issue. It's a symptom of a bigger problem that we see with these child rape, with these adult rape, with all these instances of people surrendering unto their religious leaders, abdicating their better judgment, surrendering to them the decision of what is right and wrong. And this is a funny thing that happened because it's just cash, and some grinder boys had a good time on the Jersey Shore, and that's great. I'm all in favor of people having fun, and it's not about the fact that he was having homosexual relationships. Clearly, that's not the issue, right? Matt Gaetz allegedly loved to party with the underage girls. But even if he wanted to party with above age girls, it's the hypocrisy of it all. And the fact that it's unquestioned. This is the core of it. And I don't get why conservative people, conservative-minded people, don't see that that's part of the problem, is that it's the sacredness of some things that shouldn't be trusted into the hands of individual people, right? Humans fail. So why are you treating this person like they're more than a human? I don't get it.
Yeah, that's the sad thing about this as well, because a lot of people reading this and hearing about this story, a lot of conservatives and a lot of Christians will be looking at it and saying, "Oh, it's terrible, he had homosexual relations. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. If someone wants to go and meet someone on Grindr, that's
Sure.
absolutely fine. Go and party away." It is the hypocrisy. You're talking about a guy who's representing the Catholic Church, and let's be honest. The Catholic Church, it's time that they were, made a criminal organization, with the amount of abuse that's gone off, with the children buried in under homes in Canada, the recent things that have come out in France with the sexual abuse of children, the historical abuse of women in Ireland.
Yes.
It's you could go on and on and on about it. Something needs to come out about the Catholic Church and it be made a criminal organization. And that is more important than the fact that this guy went and had sex with men he met on Grindr. And the sad truth of it is, a lot of people reading this article, that will be the focus.
Yeah.
Rather than the problem of the Catholic Church.
Both of you guys have mentioned hypocrisy, and I think that's a wrong word in here. It's not the hypocrisy the problem. The problem is the immunity that they have against the law. If any of us had stolen that money, we would be in jail for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
But this guy, no, he's a man of God, therefore he's going to go free. No, they shouldn't have this legal immunity. That's
there's
what is
politics
wrong
there
with
too. There's politics there too, Teo.
Yep.
You're right.
I
There's
totally agree with
immunity,
you.
but the prosecutors don't want to get in trouble with the Catholic voters. Because as ridiculous as it might sound, there will be Catholic voters that believe that their little priest should somehow be treated differently, even if he did this stuff. That the church should somehow be immune.
When actually the opposite is what I mean. In other cases, in just about any other case, if the victim is especially vulnerable, then the stakes go up. I go through HR presentations as a teacher about how, even if we get along with our, I teach at the college level now, so my students are mostly adults. Even if we're, getting along with our students, there's a power differential there. There's an expectation. There's an ethical expectation there. Your students are vulnerable. And so if we have these people that are going to church that hold these people up on that pedestal, often literally, they're especially vulnerable. And so not only, I mean, that makes it so much easier. I mean, I can imagine it can be so much more tempting, right? You got this church full of people that are trusting you without even thinking about it. And the temptation has to be there. But the expectation has to go with, it has to go hand in hand. You can't, if you're gonna set yourself up like that, if you're gonna present yourself, your organization in that light, there has to be that expectation. Extra care has to be taken. Extra transparency has to be in place because of the vulnerability of the victims.
Right. Well said, everyone. It was sort of a lighthearted last article for us to focus on, but there's nothing at its root. There's nothing light about it. It's funny that a priest went off and did something extremely not what we'd expect a priest to do. Honestly, when I was in college, I hung out with some friends of mine, and they were priests in training. I don't know what you call that. They were at the seminary, and we used to go to the gay clubs all the time. And they would go and hook up hard with every guy they could find, because they knew that they were going to have to cut it all off. And that's cut off all activities. They'd smoke and they'd drink. And there's this strange
So sad.
Yeah, because like eventually my closest friend, Ricardo, we used to call him Sticky Ricky. Sticky Ricky quit the priesthood and is happily married, living in Europe right now. He gave it all
Good
up.
for him.
Yeah, good for him. He's doing well. He's living a better life than he was, like sort of burning the candle at both ends, but he was also in his 20s. Anyhow, yes, I think we've had an interesting conversation today.
One last question, Johnny.
Because what? Make it a good
really
one.
quickly. Yeah, Scott was talking about what went on with this guy, and we have this saying in Spanish, and maybe you have something similar. Ladrón que roba ladrón tiene 100 años de perdón. That's
we have that. We have that. We have that.
Oh yeah. How is it in English?
I have no idea. What? Can you translate it, please?
A thief who steals from a thief is forgiven for 100 years.
Oh.
It's like a thief stealing from another thief gets it's pardoned.
We don't have that one.
You liar.
No, I mean it. I've never heard that. Richard, you're in the mother tongue language. Do you know that one?
I speak less Spanish than I do English.
Right. No, I don't know that one. That's a good
so
one.
In Spanish we can forgive him, but in English you can't. Oh, guys.
Yeah.
You disappoint me once again.
Final thoughts, Teo. Sorry to disappoint. Final thoughts, Richard. What you got for the whole episode? For the whole episode. I think it's been an episode which has got. So for me, it's focused very much on bad ideas, but that's my kind of like where I like to go on stuff. And we don't need to have bad ideas. If we can try and eliminate that, if we can try and think better, if you're a priest, you can make judgment calls on, am I in the right job? Or do I do what Sticky Ricky does and leave the priesthood? Good old Sticky Ricky.
You can make assessments as a person.
Yeah.
You can do I really believe I'm seeing Thor, or am I just embarking on some kind of like Lord of the Rings cosplay because it makes me feel good?
Aragorn's in my posse. Yeah.
Let's correct thinking, and then if we correct thinking, a lot of these things would fall by the wayside anyway.
I'm with you, Richard. Thank you, Teo. Final thoughts?
Yeah. Love this episode. Felt very comfortable with you guys. You're all awesome. And I would like to go with the first thing that we saw, how parasocial interaction is going to affect things. We should struggle to be good examples for people if we ever get to become famous. And I think that representation is needed. And that masculine player is the best example of why we require representation so much. And now I totally understand why people get upset with Hollywood's whitewashing. So representation is important.
Got it. Scott, we got 2 minutes left. What you got? Give me something.
Right. Well, I'll just say I want to thank all of you again for having me on the show. It was really interesting to interact with all of you and to kind of see behind the curtain a little bit. So I really appreciate it. I've been a fan for a long time, and it was a lot of fun to be part of this.
Name of your podcast one more time.
My podcast is the God or Not podcast. We're at godornotpodcast.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on, all of you. Join our fan-run social media outlets. You can find most of us at the Atheist Community of Discord, popping in and out. You can find that at tiny.cc/ACA Discord, and on Facebook, fan-run Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/nonprofitslive if Facebook is up and you don't have a problem with the fact that Facebook is a toxic environment that abuses people and it plays to our worst natures. If you would like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/thenonprofits. If you already find yourself shopping at Amazon and you don't have a problem with their employment practices, you can support the atheist community of Austin by shopping at smile.amazon.com and selecting the ACA as the beneficiary. Everything you do helps us out, or you could just donate your time, energy, and creativity to your community at large. We want to hear what you have to say. We like your feedback. Email us at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We'll see you next week. Watch The Atheist Experience live Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTAXP and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callaxp.